That's all kinds of unfair.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. I have to say, for legal reasons first, that I am here today as the Executive Director of DoD FedGlobe, and it is not my intent to reflect the views of my employer, the Department of Defense. My name is Lisa Coe.
I'm Caden Montana, but I go by Blue. I was in the Marine Corps for 13 years, from 1993 to 2005. I did 3.5 tours in Iraq. I was discharged the last half, last half of my last tour. I was kicked out under Don't Ask, Don't Tell with a bad conduct discharge, and I then made it my mission to educate and help everybody else who was in my position, or to keep them from being in my position. So that is my intent here today, and I'll be around afterwards also to answer any questions and talk to you guys. Okay. This is Lisa Cole.
Hi, everybody, and I am a veteran with the military. I was in the Navy for almost 5 years. I pretty much was openly a lesbian while in the military. It was a public secret. I got out in '82. This was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, when it was really illegal to be gay. And it was my experience that some people, they completely ignore if you're pretty open, and other people they go after even if you're not open at that time, and that was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I've been working for the Department of Defense for well over 30 years. I did collateral duty in addition to my regular job when I was in Washington, D.C. as an equal employment opportunity counselor. So I have a lot of background about discrimination. Unfortunately, until we opened DoD FedGlobe, we couldn't really help our people. So now we're helping our people by educating the public and advocating for all lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender employees of the Department of Defense and aligned corporations, past and present. During this presentation, if you have any questions, please, raise your hand and I'll let you go for it, because the intent is to teach. This particular presentation is available for free on our website, and that website link is dodfedglobe.ning.com. And it's a social network, and it is free to join DoD FedGlobe via that social network, and there's a lot of educational material up there. To get this particular presentation, you would click on the Educational tab, and when you do, you'll see a PowerPoint that you can download, and on that front page of the educational material, it explains how to explain each slide. Because the intent is to give everybody the ability to teach this wherever they are in the globe. Okay, Kate, you're going to have to sit over there, and you're going to have to do the page down. Now this is causes of discrimination, and you will notice when you look at this slide that it's got a lot of stuff on it. But in addition to that, stuff feeds into stuff, such as feeding into competition for power, prestige, and positions is political, social, and economic. In addition to that, you see below there structured institutional things like religion, education, your other organizations. If you work for a business, there are certain things that people are taught. And then you see conflict also has an effect on people being more discriminatory. Everything feeds eventually into discrimination, all these different inputs. Even if people are low motivated because they don't have much of an income and they don't have much of an education, and the only job opportunities they get are things like sweeping a barber shop. That's the best they can get based on where they're at, and this could be true anywhere in the globe. Then people will use the fact that these people never had the opportunity for a good education and for a decent living against them for a reason to discriminate. Have any of you ever here experienced discrimination? Raise your hands if you have. Okay, when you experienced discrimination, what happened? What did you feel?
Really upset. I felt it was unfair. It didn't feel good.
And did you ever think, why are these people being discriminatory to me?
No, I kind of get the social, economic, religious graph thing here. That it makes sense. So I knew why. It just wasn't fair.
Well, one of the good things about what we're teaching today is you're going to see why all this happens and how to actually counteract it, because people are taught through all these avenues how to discriminate. And we all know when we've been treated in discriminatory fashion, it feels really uncomfortable, doesn't it? Okay. Now, the next one is the cycle of discrimination. And here you see that as the arrow goes around, the intensity increases. You know, you really notice, and you can't ignore these things. A lot of people, it's human nature to ignore this stuff and hope it goes away, but it really never does. It only increases unless you get to the point of conflict. When things are really serious, no matter what, the oppressed group will actually reach the point of confrontation with the oppressor. But it's smart where if you see these things happening early, to document them and to actually go to the person and explain politely why this makes you uncomfortable. And that's something most humans don't want to do, but it's really important. And every step of the way when you do these things, the key to winning any kind of case, whether it's a process case with EEO or the Office of Special Counsel or going into a lawsuit, is documentation. The things you want to document is witnesses, what those witnesses saw. You want to confront the person who's doing things as much as possible in writing, like by email, and send yourself a blind copy to your personal email. Keep a whole folder just on discrimination at that particular location. And that's especially true on the job, because the way you win is documentation. And so you could wait till things get to a ridiculous level before you actually confront your oppressor, but the truth of the matter is that it's better off to be done earlier. But eventually, no matter what, it will reach a height if you ignore it, where you have to confront. Next one. Now here you see on this page influences that can strengthen or weaken the cycle of discrimination. What's going on in the world right now as far as gay marriage? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
It seems like that by and large a lot of Western countries are progressing towards legalizing it, somewhat slowly. Non-Western countries are not quite as quick.
Right, so you see that it's slowly but surely the world view, the world perspective about same-gender marriage is changing, right? And they call it gay marriage, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's gay marriage. It could be two bisexual people, right? Who just share the same gender. Neither one is gay. It could be one person who's bisexual, one person who's gay. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just same-gender marriage is marriage. But that is changing, and that's changing in a big way. Even some of the nations that are in Asia are opening up. And in the Mideast, Israel is really one of the more open countries in this area. But also in the Mideast, one of the worst groups in this area are folks like the Iranians, where they will hang you if they discover you're L, G, or B. But strangely enough, if you're transgender, they will actually help you get your transition because they're pro-transgender. They're just anti-L, G, and B. Isn't that interesting? You didn't know that, did you?
No.
As long as you live your life in a heterosexual way based on the gender you are or become, they're happy.
It doesn't actually surprise me that much. I would see how that would fit into their worldview.
Now, one of the things you have to take in consideration is the risk factors versus mitigation. So with risk, there are certain things that will promote the prejudice, just like mitigation factors that will do the opposite. The key thing that is changing the way people look at, hi folks, could you grab a presentation up there and one of those postcards for each of you? Thank you. And these presentations are on our website. They're free, and you can tailor them. And our website is on that first page that you'll see on the overall thing. Okay, and it's free to join DoD Fed Globe. And we're the LGBT group that advocates for and educates about LGBT employees past and present, military, civil servant, and aligned corporations, the Department of Defense. So we're now over at Influences that can strengthen or weaken the cycle of discrimination. There's 2 slides on every page. Okay, so with the risk factors, as those increase, prejudice increases. But as we mitigate, prejudice, it decreases. And we want to mitigate every step of the way. What you see up there tells you some of the tools you will need to mitigate. Is there anything that catches anyone's eye? Anything up there that you didn't see before, that you never thought about, that could probably reduce prejudice? Look in the middle. What do you see? You see fairness, right? When you have an oppressed class, what do you don't have? Exactly. And so as we make things more fair, you reduce prejudice. And for us, in our community, not only do we want our community to have that equality, but we want equality for all. All people should be treated equally. So as you get rid of inequality, there's less oppression in the world. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide. Stereotyping. Now, stereotyping is always code. And stereotyping is one of the leading causes for discrimination, because even though we're all educated to discriminate from all these various sources, whether it's religion, economics, our group that we were raised with, or from our schools, our work, the key factor here is people take a shortcut and give discrimination a free pass by stereotyping. What are some stereotypes you folks are familiar with? Anybody want to give it a shot?
Are we generalized?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've gotten that trans people are pedophiles a lot.
I got to tell you something interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. I work for the Department of Defense, and I was very upset when they gave out information about hiring disabled people. And when I looked at the instructions associated with it, they lumped transgender with pedophiles, so that they look like visually they look like sexual criminals, based on how the instruction is. DoD Fed Globe, we've complained about this into the Diversity Office of the Pentagon, as well as the Diversity Office of Office of Personnel Management, because we feel that that is the wrong connection. And I was actually pushing for somebody who's kicked out of the military service to be able to at least get a job, because they're kicking them out based on disability, right? That's their excuse. But then they don't want to give them any benefits. And so they don't want to hire them for that, and so they lump them with sexual criminals, which is completely insane. Now, people often justify these stereotypes. For instance, I raised 5 children. I have 2 sons and 3 daughters. And I raised them with both family-oriented toys and scientific and engineering toys, and I gave it to all 5 of them equally, which most people don't do they? What do most people do when it comes to raising the kids with toys?
Split it up based on family.
That's right. And what do they normally do? They give the family-oriented toys to which gender?
Female.
But how long have men also been raising kids? Right, so why would that just be for females? But that's what we're taught, and that's very, very wrong thinking. And boys are often given the engineering and the mathematical related toys. And everybody who goes to school, you have to be good at math. You have to have some understanding of how things are put together. So that's important, and science is important for everybody. In fact, out of my 5 kids, one is actually intending to become a doctor. That one is a female gender. So you can't tell by gender what somebody's going to pick for a profession, can you? But does society actually stereotype what kind of job people are going to take? Of course it does. It even stereotypes what kind of colors conform by gender, don't they? Pink for girls, blue for boys. But the fact of the matter is, you can wear either color, and it doesn't really characterize your sexual orientation or your gender, does it? So there's, especially now, the young people today of this generation, they blow me away because, I mean, they wear all kinds of things, they do all kinds of things with their hair, and it's completely gender non-conforming for either side. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, one of the things you also see on here is how people are exploited when they're discriminated against by these coded words. One of the words that is often used, I'm Jewish, was often used when I was a kid, was they called us kikes. And that was a very insulting word for Jews. And I grew up in New York City, which has a large Jewish population, but rest assured, every time my parents went below an underpass, there were Nazi insignias everywhere. So there's a lot of prejudice based on anything. It could be based on your religion, right? It could be based on your race, your ethnicity, the language you speak, how they perceive you of gender conforming or not conforming, or what they may think your sexual orientation is. One of the most enlightening things